Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another story time this week. This week, our story is going to be about two children who go out on a walk in the woods and they are looking for animal signs. What do you think I mean when I say animal signs? What are they looking for? So, all of our animals at some point in their lives leave behind like a little clue that they were there. Some animals leave behind a bunch of clues. And some animals, we don't see clues from them very often, and we don't see some of these animals very often. But we'll talk more about what those clues might be in a minute. One good example of animal signs we hear a lot about in the fall. How many of you either have gone deer hunting or know somebody who goes deer hunting? It's a pretty popular topic right now. Deer hunting season in Minnesota has already begun, and it's about to begin in Wisconsin, so it might be on your mind lately. And animal signs are a big part of deer hunting, right? In order to hunt the deer, we have to know where the deer are, and we can do that by looking for their signs. So what might some of the signs be that a deer has been around? We might find their deer tracks, right? Their footprints on the ground. We might find deer poop, or we call it scat in the scientific world. We might find a deer trail. So just like when humans walk the same path over and over and over again, kind of wear a trail into the earth, and deers do that as well. You might find a deer scrape where the males have kind of dug away the grass and the leaves down to the dirt on the ground and they leave their scent behind there. Or you might find a deer rub where the bucks, the males again, have rubbed with their antlers on shrubs or small trees and rubbed away the bark. Again, it's kind of a way to tell where our deer have been moving and what trails they might be using. You might even find a deer bed where deers have been sleeping at night and the grass is all flattened in a little oval where they've been laying. So there's lots of different signs that we can look for that deer have been around. Even if you're not a hunter, animal signs can be really fun to look for. Personally, I don't hunt anything, but I love looking for animal signs because I just think it's really neat to know what animals have been around, what animals are in my backyard, what animal maybe walked on the trail yesterday before I walked on the trail, or maybe even just hours before I walked on the trail. I think it's really fun to think about. So we're going to learn a little bit more about animal signs. Be thinking in your head about what types of animal signs you might see on a walk. And if there's any that aren't in our book, and we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. So our story today is called Been There, Done That, Reading Animal Signs. It was written by Jen Funk-Weber and illustrated by Andrea Gabriel. Here we go. Okay, Helena, said Cole. Where are your wild animals? I go home tomorrow, and all I've seen are magpies and gray jays. Where are the bears and the moose? They're out there, said Helena. So here we see a magpie, and up here you can see are the gray jays. We don't have gray jays down here in the Driftless region, but they do in northern Minnesota. Sometimes we call them whiskey jacks. They are super cool birds. So they store food for winter and they stick it up in the trees using their spit, which is super sticky and it acts like glue. It's pretty cool. Helena and Cole continued on the trail. They wove through willows. The bark was stripped off at waist height. Something had been there. Something had done that. There are snowshoe hares around here, Helena said. Cole couldn't see any hares. So Helena is noticing the bark on these willows is stripped off around waist height, which is pretty high. What could do that? She said, snowshoe hares. They don't seem that tall. Months before, when the snow was deep, snowshoe hares nibbled the bark within their reach. They can reach a lot higher in the snow because they can walk on top of the snow because they're big, huge snowshoe-like back feet. Helena and Cole hiked to a silty green river. Ew, Cole wrinkled his nose. Dead fish. Helena picked up a long black feather. She traced over wingtips outlined in the sand. Something had been there. Something had done that. What do you think it is? Eagles catch salmon here. Cole didn't see any eagles. So Cole's looking for animals. Helena is looking for animal signs. Earlier that day, an eagle snatched a dying salmon from the water. It hauled the fish up the beach and ate it. Helena and Cole followed the trail to a sparkling green lake. Helena pointed to a cottonwood trunk that looked like an apple core. Something had been there. Something had done that. Beavers live in that lodge. Cole didn't see any beavers. That evening, after the kids left, a beaver crawled out of the lake for a cottonwood snack. Helena and Cole strolled through a field. Helena sat down in a big oval where the tall grass was smashed flat. Something had been there. Something had done that. A moose took a nap here. Cole didn't see any moose. The day before, a moose waded in the lake, eating sedges from the bottom. Then it lay down in the meadow and snoozed in the sun. Helena and Cole climbed up a hillside. Helena skipped between little round holes, stopping short at a giant one. Something had been there. Something had done that. A bear tried to dig out a ground squirrel. Cole didn't see any bears. Early that morning, a grizzly raced after a ground squirrel. The squirrel dove into the nearest hole and zipped through underground tunnels. The grizzly dug and dug, but it never found the ground squirrel. Climbing over the mountain ridge, Helena and Cole discovered a patch of snow on the north side. So much for all the wild animals, said Cole. They're here, Helena assured him. We just can't see them. Cole packed snowballs, and Helena made tiny snowmen until a whole herd of snowmen greeted the setting sun. We'd better head home, said Helena. That night, as the sun crept along the horizon, a red fox trotted over the mountain. It sniffed strange snow statues and tracks. Something had been there. Something had done that. It has some more information in the back of the book. But so in our story, we saw Cole, who was really excited to see some wild animals, and he never saw an animal. And it seemed like he was kind of frustrated on the walk, right? He kept saying, I don't see any of those things. And we had Helena, who had learned not just to look for animals, but to look for the signs of animals, which can make your walks in nature way more exciting, right? If you know the signs to look for. And it might seem kind of hard at first, but once you start looking for them, you're going to find that you can find a lot of animal signs on a walk. One of my favorite things to do, especially when I go on walks with kids in the woods, is I like to bring a scrap piece of paper or sometimes a little whiteboard or something, and we write down every single animal sign that we see. And sometimes we might see over 70 in just one walk. So what are some of the other animal signs that we could look for? In the book, we saw, let's see, what did we see? We saw chew marks from not only the hare, but also from the beaver. So chew marks are a good one to look for. Animal tracks, footprints, especially in muddy areas or in the snow, are good ones to look for. They found an eagle feather, right? So body parts you might sometimes find, whether that's feathers, might be bones, might be antlers. You can find different body parts in the woods. You might be able to find, one thing they don't mention in here is scat or animal poop in the woods, and that can tell you a lot about the types of animals that have been around. They found a bed where an animal had been sleeping, but you might find nests or burrows or dens or holes in trees that maybe belong to a squirrel or woodpeckers or other birds, owls, who knows what might live in there. So look for animal homes. You might find dig marks, right, or other signs that animals have been trying to find food. You might find the buds nibbled off plants, or you might find squirrels often leave what we call a midden, which is like a waste pile. Red squirrels especially, when they strip the pine cones, they only eat the seeds, and the rest of the pine cones we'll find in piles around the forest. So keep your eyes out on your walk for all these different animal signs that you might find. And keep a list. I would love to know what's on your list if you want to share it with me. Otherwise, it's fun to look back on your lists and you'll see like, wow, every time I walk, I've seen this animal sign, right? There must be a lot of this animal around. And it's fun to learn from the animal signs that we find in the woods. I will post some resources down below if you want to know more and do some fun activities for the next 2 weeks that involve animal signs. Maybe if you're hunting in the next 2 weeks, you can try out your new knowledge of animal signs to see if it helps you find a deer, or maybe you're hunting something else. And even if you're not hunting like me, you can just use it for fun on a walk. So get outside in the next 2 weeks, and we'll see you back after Thanksgiving for another story time. Have an awesome time. Bye.